The Last Word with Matt Cooper. Today FM. It all happens here.
In a moment, we're going to talk to Jennifer Carroll McNeill, the Minister for European Affairs and Defence, about a government push to get more Irish people working within EU institutions and agencies. But I have to ask you first, as it applies, I think, to European Affairs and Defence, what do you make of these reports that Israeli flights for the Israeli Defence Forces have flown through Irish airspace, bringing munitions to their war against the people of Gaza?
We're conducting an examination. I've seen the media reports, of course, and of course I would take anything very, very seriously. But the Department of Transport is trying to examine the facts, including engaging with the civil carrier in question to determine what has happened, if anything. And when we have the facts, we'll be able to report better on it. It is important to say that there are very strict procedures in relation to any sort of overflight or indeed landing by any military or civil air carrier. They are required to get consent for very specific things, and I can go through those with you. But no applications for consent were received either in 2023 or 2024, and obviously no consents were given. So this is a media report that's important, and we want to get to the bottom of it, and the Department of Transport is conducting an examination. But I can't really go beyond that because we don't have any applications.
Okay, but you can clarify that you didn't give any permission because
Correct.
You weren't asked for permission.
That's correct.
But what does that make you think then about what may be happening if advantage has been taken of Ireland by civil carriers or the Israeli Defence Forces to fly munitions through our airspace?
Well, we would take that very, very seriously, but we have no evidence of that. But what we do have is a very, very long and rigorous process for obtaining any such exemption where, for example, if a military aircraft wants to land here or engages in any sort of activity, overflight, any intelligence gathering, it has to require the consent of the Minister for Foreign Affairs. And that is a long-standing policy that has been going back many decades. Similarly, with any civil aircraft, there is a policy which is actually managed by the Department of Transport instead of the Department of Foreign Affairs. It doesn't really matter. The point is, they're prohibited from carrying munitions of war unless an exemption.
And what if you discovered that this has happened? What will be done?
Then we would take that exceptionally serious, Matt.
When you say you take it exceptionally serious, what will you do?
How can I go beyond establishing the facts first? And I think any reasonable approach is simply gather the facts first and then make a determination as to what has happened, if anything has happened, where, when, how, and then make an assessment about what
Okay, well then what about precedent? Has it happened before in any circumstances such as that has happened before? What was done?
Not that I'm aware of, Matt. And as I said, we have this long-standing precedent going with, from a military perspective, with the Minister for Foreign Affairs, on the civil side with the Department of Transport. And we would take that very seriously because we would take our military neutrality very seriously, very, very seriously. And that extends not just what happens on the island of Ireland, not just what Ireland does, but how we allow our space to be used. And we take that very seriously. And for that reason, we have very strong rules going back to the 40s in relation to what can be done, not just on the island of Ireland, but in airspace. And those regulations go back very many decades. We take this very seriously.
Has the government done enough in both the European Union and in its communications with Israel to express the public's horror of what's happening in Gaza?
We certainly keep trying because it's very, very clear the Irish position has been absolute revulsion at what has happened in the Middle East, both what has happened, what Hamas has done and what the Israeli government has done. We were the first to call for an immediate ceasefire, for the return of hostages, for the immediate cessation of violence, for unhindered humanitarian access. And we reiterate those claims, those demands. We have led in Europe, along with Spain and Norway, to try to recognise a state of Palestine. We were leaders in terms of giving funding to UNRWA when they called for core funding. The Taoiseach was the first there to make sure that they had, and we were the largest contributors, both in proportional and absolute terms, to UNRWA. We have called again and again for the EU to look at its trade agreement with Israel to see what and how it needs to be revised. We have put pressure on the Commission.
Why have you not had success with the rest of the EU in that regard?
Because the rest of the EU doesn't agree with us, Matt, but that doesn't mean that we don't, and that I don't articulate it, that the Taoiseach doesn't articulate it, the Taoiseach doesn't articulate it every single time we go. But we don't have agreement with that. But what we did get agreement with was that the Commission has recently announced €400 million for the support to the Palestinian Authority. And we pushed for that, better supports from Europe. And what that means is it's for state building, it's for institution building, it's for rebuilding actual, on the ground, the needs that are there. And we have pushed for the Europe to do more, to give more to the Palestinian Authority. And Ursula von der Leyen announced that in July. So that is a step in the right direction. We will continue to press, as both I, the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach engage in Europe now in the next coming of weeks. We will continue to press on the EU-Israel trade agreement. And we we articulate this on behalf of the Irish people at every opportunity because we take this so seriously. We would like to see a resolution, a political resolution, a two-state solution, and we are trying in every way that we can both to support aid workers on the ground. We are UNRWA's. I mean, if you ask the people in UNRWA, who do you turn to first? It is Ireland, and it is Ireland who were there for them first in terms of core funding, both in proportional and absolute terms. And I hope that Irish people know how much we are trying to do and how much UNRWA and others depend on us to be there and to be their champions in different ways.
Okay, one of the reasons that you're here is also because there is a push by the government to get more Irish people to work within EU institutions and agencies. About how many do so at present? We're about 20 short at every level, Matt. About 1.6% of the 60,000 people is what we're entitled to, or what is the sort of the guiding rate. And we have historically done extremely well as people move to Europe to take what are extremely well paid, extremely exciting jobs. We've had 2 Secretary Generals of different commissions. But over the last number of years, we've had a lot of senior people retiring and are due to retire. And while we do have an exceptionally talented cohort of Irish people at different levels, we're about 20 and 30 jobs short at every level to try to meet the representation allowance that we can have. So that's a total of how many?
I'm sorry, I don't know at every level.
Is it hundreds in total?
Yes, it is. Yes. It's a couple of hundred out of the 60,000 that work across the different institutions.
Okay, but do you not just fill them from government departments?
Well, we can. We have seconded national experts. We also have about 60 of those. But what we're talking about is people who are actually hired by the European Union, not by Ireland. So they are Irish people working in, for example, the Agriculture Directorate, working as in aviation, working in veterinary, working in engineering.
So you don't necessarily second from the Irish Civil Service. You're looking for Irish people to fill these jobs from outside for the European.
Yes. There's about 900 jobs. There will probably be a competition at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. There's probably about 900 jobs to get onto the panel. We expect 300,000 applicants from across Europe, and Irish people can do really, really well. They have 2 languages already because Irish is an EU language. So if Irish is your first language, or if English is your first language and Irish is your second, you're already meeting the criteria. Whether you're in agriculture, whether you're in engineering, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a linguist, the opportunity to work there is a significant one. The starting salary, Matt, for a graduate is €5,000 net a month. That's a starting salary of 92,000, 93,000 euros. It's very, very significant, and that only goes up. And then there are a series of allowances that build and add to that. But the opportunity to work on free trade agreements, on the cutting edge of policy, is very significant.
So if it's paying that much, why are you struggling to fill the jobs?
There are a lot of very well paying jobs in Ireland as well. And we are trying to place more emphasis on getting Irish people to take these jobs. There are really exciting opportunities, and that's why I'm here to
working in Brussels.
People. Working in Brussels, but not just Brussels. For example, if you're in intellectual property, the Intellectual Property Authority is based in Alicante, and you can have a very good salary working in Alicante doing intellectual property on behalf of the EU. So it's 30,000 people in Brussels, 30,000 around the rest of the institutions. So people are considering careers, university. They're coming back to school in different ways, and they might be thinking about the future now. And we have a dedicated portal on the Department of Foreign Affairs website. The competition is extremely difficult, but Irish government will help Irish applicants with interview preparation, with training materials, to compete with what is a very, very competitive and difficult exam. We want Irish people in Europe, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Minister of State with responsibility for European Affairs and Defence, Jennifer Carroll MacNeill.